Hi, loves, and welcome back to Design for More. Today, we're closing out the strategy series, and we're doing it with reflectors. And this feels like such an honest way to complete the arc, not because reflectors come last, because you're the smallest or an afterthought. It's more because the reflector is the type that naturally invites us to zoom out, to widen our lens, and to feel the whole room, not just one corner of it, to really sense what's happening underneath what's being said. Maybe you could say to notice the subtler movements, the mood in the air, maybe even an unspoken truth. And if you've listened to the other episodes in this series, you may have felt a kind of momentum building, a sense of, okay, here's how my energy works, here's what to do, here's how to move. And now with reflectors, there's a natural slowing down, a pause, a softening. And it's not because reflectors are slow or they can't decide or they're unsure. It's because the reflector strategy asks for something that our modern world doesn't know how to respect or really understand, and that's time. And not time like a delay, but time like a sacred ingredient. So if you're a reflector listening, I want to begin with something that may feel, I hope feels like relief in your body. Your strategy is not here to make you faster or make you decisive in the way that the world demands decisiveness and speed. It's not here to make you certain. It's here to protect your sensitivity, to preserve the clarity you already have within you and help you live as yourself in a world that is constantly trying to shape you into something more predictable. The reflector strategy is often summarized as wait a lunar cycle before making big decisions. So let's talk more about that. A lunar cycle is about 28 days or one full turn of the moon through all her phases. And yeah, that's the headline. But if we just leave it as a headline, it just sounds like a flat sentence that doesn't serve you. Or it can sound like you're not allowed to move, or you're going to miss your chance while you're waiting, or get ready to always be behind. And that can maybe start to feel like human design is telling you that you're fragile or inefficient or somehow not built for the real life. And that's not at all what this is. So I want to take our time here and give this strategy the dignity it deserves, because reflector strategy is not passive. It's perceptive. It's not waiting around. It's letting the truth reveal itself in the only way it can for you, through lived experience, through shifting your perspective, through noticing the difference between who you are in one field versus another. Because unlike any other energy type, reflectors don't have a fixed internal engine that hums the same way every day. Your centers are fully open. You're not designed to be consistent in the way that the world defines consistency. You're not built to wake up and access the same stable inner baseline and then make choices from that. You're built to sample energy, to reflect it, to move through life like a tuning fork. You're here to feel what's happening in the environment. So that could be in your relationships, your community, your home, your work, and then to mirror it back. You're designed to show us the health of our field. And because of that, your decision making is not meant to be quick. Again, it's not because you're indecisive, but it's because your clarity is so multi-dimensional. It's not a single internal yes, it's more like a pattern that emerges over time. And this, to me, is the heart of reflector strategy. Reflectors don't make decisions the way most people do. Decisions reveal themselves to reflectors. And the lunar cycle isn't a waiting room. It's not punishment. It's more like conversation. Each phase of the moon gives you access to really a different you, a different emotional tone, a different relationship to risk or to desire or even to fear, to possibility, to something that might feel thrilling at the new moon, for example, like a fresh beginning, like, yes, this is it. And then a week later, it might feel questionable. And then at the full moon, it might feel overwhelming or too much. And then in the waning phase, it might feel obvious that it's not right or obvious that it is. And none of those moments are wrong. They're information. And one of the most important things I can offer you as a reflector is this. You're not meant to trust the first feeling. You're meant to trust the pattern. And when you can let that land, when you can stop judging yourself for changing and start honoring yourself for perceiving, then everything gets easier. Because what often happens for reflectors is that you live inside a world that worships speed. People want you to know. They want you to know quickly. They want you to answer quickly, commit quickly. And if you don't, it can feel like pressure in your system. Pressure to choose, pressure to decide, to claim a direction, even if it doesn't feel true yet. And under that pressure, a reflector can do one of two things. Either they freeze or they say yes too fast just to make the pressure go away, just to relieve that pressure in your system. And neither of those is actually your strategy. No, your strategy isn't to freeze, but it's also not to rush. Your strategy is staying in relationship to something long enough for your truth to take shape. If you're a reflector, you've likely had moments where you were so excited about something, a move, a relationship, a job, an offer, a trip, a project. In the beginning, it felt like a yes. And then later, something shifted, and then you questioned yourself. You thought, why did I say yes? Or why can't I stick to anything? Why am I so flaky in changing my mind? And I want to offer you a different lens on that experience. What if your change of mind isn't a flaw? What if it's the exact intelligence that your design is built on? What if your system is exactly doing its job, showing you a different angle of the same decision? Because wisdom for you isn't a quick snapshot. It's more like a panoramic view. And that kind of view takes time to gather. So waiting a lunar cycle isn't about delaying your life. It's about letting life speak to you from multiple angles before you build a life around one of them. And you probably have thought by now, okay, Julie, but real life does not give me 28 days. And I want to speak to that too, because this is where people can get really black and white about it. And yes, there are choices in life that are small. Choices that don't require you to take a month to decide what to eat, whether you want to go for a walk, whether you want to go to that dinner, that party, watch that show. Those aren't lunar cycle decisions. Reflector strategy is really about the bigger commitments, the choices that can shape your trajectory, the ones that change your environment, your relationships, your responsibilities, your identity, that take your resources. And the reason those decisions matter so much for you is because you're profoundly impacted by what and who you commit to. Your openness means that you take in the field around you and you amplify it. The people, the physical spaces, the environments. So if you commit yourself to something that isn't aligned, it doesn't just drain you, it can distort you. You can start to feel like you don't recognize yourself, and then you might think you're lost when really you've just over-merged with something that doesn't fit. Remember, again, all of your centers are completely open. They are all absorbing and amplifying the energy of the defined centers around you, even the energetics of the inanimate beings and physical spaces around you. So when we say wait a lunar cycle, we're talking about protecting you from any environment, any energy that is misaligned, that doesn't serve you. It's not meant to restrict you. It's meant to protect you, to give you enough time to feel, who am I when I'm in this energy? Who am I when I'm with this person, when I'm in this room, when I imagine living inside of this choice? And as you ask those questions across different phases of the moon, you'll start to see the truth. It will reveal itself. Now, here's another part of reflector strategy that I don't think gets emphasized enough, and I want to bring it in because it's crucial, and that's the role of reflection. Many reflectors find clarity through talking. Not because you need someone to tell you what to do, it's actually the opposite. You need people who won't collapse your process, people who won't rush you, people who won't project certainty onto you, You need trusted spaces where you can speak freely enough to hear yourself. Because often your truth doesn't arrive as a thought in your head. It arrives like resonance through your own voice. You might hear yourself say something out loud and suddenly you feel like, oh yeah, that is true. Or you hear yourself describe the decision and it lands wrong and you feel it. Oh no, not that. And that is your authority at work. It's not someone else's opinion. It's your system using reflection as a mirror so you can recognize yourself. This is the part of why reflectors often thrive when they have a few trusted, let's call them sounding boards, people who can hold space without hijacking you or your process. You're most often not looking for advice. You're looking just for a clean mirror. Because your openness is so sensitive that when someone else's certainty enters your space too strongly, it can actually drown out your own knowing. So if you've ever felt like you can't make decisions around certain people because they're too loud, too persuasive, or like just too certain, well, that's not wrong. That's not you being weak. That's your system saying, I cannot hear myself in this field. And again, that's not a flaw. It's also not a flaw in them. It's just information. Which brings me to another core piece, environment. Reflectors are incredibly impacted by their environment. And I don't just mean your physical home, although that's definitely part of it. I mean the energetic environment. The people you spend time with, the pace of your life, the culture of your work, the emotional weather of your relationships. A reflector in the wrong environment can feel foggy, heavy, tired, unmotivated, dull, disconnected, even depressed. Not because anything is inherently wrong with them, but because they're absorbing and amplifying something that isn't theirs. Whereas a reflector in the right environment often feels surprisingly clear and light. Not necessarily because life is easy, but because their system isn't fighting the field all the time. So if you're a reflector and you're in a season of confusion, I want to offer you something. Before you question your ability to make a decision, first question the environment you're trying to decide inside of. Are you in a space that lets you breathe? Are you around people who let you be in the process? Are you giving yourself quiet? Are you giving yourself time to be alone enough to reset your field? Because one of the hidden truths of being a reflector is that you're always in relationship with what's around you. And so your strategy isn't just wait. It's also importantly to curate the field that you're waiting inside of. Because a lunar cycle isn't just time passing, it's time passing within a particular environment. And that environment will shape what you feel. So if you're in chaos, then your clarity will be chaotic. If you're in pressure, your clarity will be pressured. If you're around people who constantly need answers, then you'll feel like you're failing for not having them. But if you can build a field that feels spacious, supportive, grounded, non-demanding, then your clarity can actually land. Now, I want to say something that might be a little confronting, but I mean it with so much love. A reflector in the wrong environment will often try to make a decision to escape the discomfort of the environment, not because the decision is right. So you might leave a job not because the next job is aligned, but because the current environment is suffocating you. You might commit to a relationship not because it's true, but because the loneliness of your current season is too loud. You might say yes to a project not because you want it, but because you want to feel like you belong. And so it's like you're running away from things rather than toward them. And there's no shame here. But the lunar cycle, your strategy, gives you the ability to separate between, is this a true desire or just a strategy of escape? And that's why it's so wise. That said, let's talk about what waiting can actually look like in real life, because I know wait for 28 days can sound like a rule that someone invented in a book. And again, waiting isn't doing nothing, it's gathering data. So let's talk about ways you can do that. Waiting is letting your nervous system settle enough to feel beyond the first hit of excitement or fear. Waiting is sleeping on it. It's waking up and noticing How do I feel about this today? It's letting yourself be in different moods and seeing what remains consistent across them. It's taking a walk and imagining the decision in your body, not in your mind. It's noticing what happens when you talk about it with one person versus another. It's noticing whether your energy expands in certain rooms and contracts in others. It's watching and feeling how your body responds when you picture yourself living inside the choice. Because reflectors often have a deep bodily knowing. It's not a sacral like generators. It's more like, do I feel like myself here? Do I feel more clear, more alive, more open, more light? Or do I feel distorted, heavy, cloudy? And the only way to know that is to give it time, to let the decision live with you. Reflectors are often pressured by non-reflectors in that time without anyone realizing it. Because people love a reflector's wisdom. They love your insight. They love your perception. They love how you can name things that others can't. But they also want you to decide quickly. They want your yes fast, to be consistent. They want you to commit in a way that makes them feel safe. So if you're listening to this because you love or lead or live with a reflector, if you have a reflector partner, friend, child, or colleague, then one of the kindest things you can do is give them time without making it mean anything. Give them that time without interpreting it, maybe as a rejection. Give them time without punishing them with distance, without making them feel responsible for your anxiety, because time is not their avoidance, it's their intelligence. So speaking of intelligence, I want to bring the moon in, because I think sometimes we talk about lunar cycle and human design like it's just a measurement of days, but the moon is not just a clock. She is a teacher. She's a rhythm. She's a lived experience. So even if you're not someone who tracks the moon phases or necessarily knows what the energy of them is, I'm assuring you, your body does, your nervous system does, and the field does. So when we say wait a lunar cycle, we're not asking you to stare at a calendar for 28 days. It's more like an invitation to pay attention to phases of perception, to begin noticing, oh yeah, I feel different in different phases. And it's so beautiful when you can start honoring that, because then you can stop pathologizing yourself. You stop making your changing feelings mean that you're unreliable. They don't have to mean a story beyond being within your own story. You can start seeing and feeling that, yeah, you're cyclical. And cyclical doesn't mean inconsistent. Cyclical is wise. It's fundamental to nature, including human nature. So you might notice that at the beginning of a cycle, you feel more optimistic, more open, more excited. Then a little later, you might become more discerning. Then you might feel the emotional intensity of it all. And then after that, you might feel a kind of detachment or clarity. And then you might feel readiness. And through that arc, you get to watch the decision reveal itself, reveal the truth. For some reflectors, that decision becomes more and more clear as time passes, and for others, it becomes less attractive. Either way, the cycle is doing its job. It's saving you from committing too early to something that your future self would resent. Resentment for a reflector is, well, maybe not the right word, but maybe you know what I mean. It's like this feeling of, I've lost myself in this. This feeling of, I don't feel like me anymore. And that is one of the hardest experiences for reflectors. It's why your strategy matters so much. And it's why I want to talk about something else, relief. Reflectors, you're designed for surprise, and not surprise like shock or chaos, more like surprise like wonder. Surprise like life revealing itself in unexpected, delightful ways. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And the irony is that when reflectors are pressured to decide quickly, then life becomes less surprising. It becomes more controlled, more planned, more boxed in. More, this is the path. But when you honor your strategy and let decisions ripen, then surprise returns. because you're letting life collaborate with you. You're letting timing, divine timing, play its part. You're letting new information arrive. You're letting the field shift. So instead of choosing from anxiety, I invite you to choose from awareness. That's when life can actually surprise you again. And even with all of that said, maybe your mind is feeling like, yeah, I understand that. I feel that. That feels like truth to me. But there might still be this fear that's coming up for reflectors when you hear wait 28 days. And that would be completely normal because that fear often feels like I'll miss it. I'll lose the opportunity. They'll move on. I'll be left behind. And sometimes, yeah, opportunities move quickly. Sometimes life doesn't give you a month. So what do you do then? Well, you do what reflectors do best. You get honest. You tell the truth about your process. You say, I'm excited and I need time to feel into this. You say, I'm not a no, but I'm not a yes yet. You say, I want to be sure this is aligned before I commit. And what I have found with clients is that the right opportunities, the right relationships, the correct spaces for you will respect that. In fact, it's part of feeling into whether or not that is the correct space for you. The correct person for you will not punish you for your timing or pressure you to abandon your wisdom. It won't ask you to betray yourself to make them comfortable. So the lunar cycle can become a kind of filter if you name it, if you honor it, if you communicate it. It can already start to show you what's truly aligned. Because anything that requires you to rush your truth is maybe not safe for you to build your life on. And I know that might be hard to hear, especially if you've lived a life of being the one who always adjusts or adapts or tries to fit other people's rhythms. But you don't need to fit. You need to be true, and truth for you takes time. So imagine that you're standing at the edge of a big decision. Maybe it's a move, a relationship, a business decision, a job, and you're feeling the pressure to decide. What would it look like to let the moon hold you instead? To let the next few weeks be an unfolding, not a demand. To let yourself be in the question, be in the decision, and let truth arrive gradually. To notice what your body feels like when you imagine the yes and when you imagine the no. To notice how you feel after certain conversations. Do you feel more or less like yourself? And to let those clues accumulate. Because your clarity isn't one lightning bolt reflector. It's usually more like a big mosaic, and you get to build that slowly. If you've ever felt too sensitive for this world, I want you to consider that maybe you're not too anything. Maybe you're accurate and aware and meant to feel what others avoid. Maybe you're meant to notice what others miss. And your strategy isn't meant to dull that gift. It's meant to protect it so that you can live a life that feels like you. A life where you're not constantly trying to stabilize yourself through force, where you're not constantly apologizing for needing time, but rather living a life where you let decisions come to you the way that they're meant to, through experience. And for everyone listening, whatever your energy type, I hope this strategy series has landed in your body as something more than information. Because strategy isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more yourself. It's about releasing the conditioned ways you've been taught to move through life and remembering how your energy naturally moves when it's not being pushed. Generators respond. Manifesting generators respond in motion and then refine as they go. Projectors wait for recognition and choose invitations that actually see them. And reflectors wait for time to reveal truth, letting the cycle give them clarity that can't be rushed. But none of these are rules. They're like relationships, and I invite you to experiment with them. When you treat it that way, like an experiment, like something living, something you practice, something you can return to and refine, then life gets simpler. Not always easier, but more true. And if you're a reflector and you want support in that experiment, understanding your lunar rhythm, your sensitivity, your environments, you can explore my offerings at juliebydesign.com. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting this series land. And thank you, reflectors, for reflecting the world back to itself, not as judgment, but as medicine. Your medicine that only you can bring. Until next time.